As Marshal of the University, it is my honor to declare open the proceedings of the 529th Convocation of the University of Chicago, and to introduce the university's 13th president, Robert J. Zimmer. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome. As the Marshal has just announced, today's ceremony is the 529th time that the University of Chicago has assembled for a convocation. These convocations have allowed students to be recognized and celebrated for their achievements after completion of their studies, and to do so through formal exercises, just as we do today. The primary purpose of convocation is, of course, to award degrees. But these occasions satisfy other objectives as well. At convocation number 1, on January 2nd, 1893, the university's first president, William Rainey Harper, set out goals for these ceremonies, goals leading to practices that we continue to observe. Harper believed these occasions of high ceremony to be a necessary and nourishing part of the life of a university, and intended to have them literally call together or cause to assemble all parts of the university community. In Harper's words, convocations are meant to bind together into a unity the many complex and diverging forms of activity which constitute the university's life and work. Today's ceremony, then, is also about reflecting upon the whole of what we do across the many libraries, laboratories, and classrooms that make up our campus. And in addition, it affords us all a moment to reflect upon the accomplishments of our past and the opportunities of our future, individually, collectively, and institutionally. I confer the degrees awarded this afternoon by virtue of authority delegated to me by the university's Board of Trustees, represented today by Trustee Mary Lou Gorno, and I do so on behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago that has responsibility for the educational programs recently completed. I again welcome you to the 529th Convocation, a time-honored ritual that recognizes achievements of which we can all be proud.
As Provost of the University of Chicago, I am pleased to introduce Amanda Woodward, who will present today's convocation address. Amanda is the William S. Gray Professor in the Department of Psychology in the College and Deputy Dean for Faculty Affairs in the Division of the Social Sciences. Professor Woodward has pioneered experimental methods to investigate social cognition in the very young. She has contributed fundamental insights into understanding the conceptual development of infants and young children. And as a founding member of the university's Center for Early Childhood Research, Professor Woodward has revealed that even infants can appreciate how human actions are structured by intentions. Her current research focuses on social cognitive development, including understanding how social structures shape the way children learn. Professor Woodward has received numerous awards, and her research has been supported by the National Science Foundation, the Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, and the McCormick Foundation. In 2014, Professor Woodward was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Science. She's a fellow of the Association for Psychological Science and the American Psychological Association, and past president of the Cognitive Development Society. She also serves on the editorial board of the journal Development Science and on the board of directors of the University of Chicago Lab Schools. Professor Woodward first joined the faculty at the University of Chicago in 1993. The title of her talk today is Learning to Speak. Amanda.
Well, congratulations, graduates. And congratulations to the parents and the partners and the family and the friends who've made it possible for you to come to this point. I'm honored to be here to share this day with you. Now, what an achievement. This ceremony celebrates the culmination of your hard work, your passion, and your brilliance. You're poised at a point of transition, anticipating what comes next and thinking back to your first days at the University of Chicago. And I am, too, thinking back. And so I wanted to start by telling you about the first time I visited this campus in 1993 to interview for a job as assistant professor in the psychology department. At that time, I was a newly minted PhD. I had already had one job interview at a respectable East Coast university. And while at that university, I had given the department a lecture about my research. In academics, we call that lecture a job talk. And the audience was mainly professors, and graduate students listened quite politely. They held their questions until the end, and then their questions were total softballs. It was cozy, a comfortable visit in all. Now, things were a little different when, several weeks later, I was invited to interview at the University of Chicago. I was a few sentences into my talk when a man in the back row stood up to tell me at length and with rising animation that my starting assumptions were deeply and completely flawed. It was pretty much open season after that. Each claim I made, each data point I presented was met with furrowed brows, muttered side conversations, and very challenging questions, zingers. Sometimes other people would answer the question before I could get a word in, and this launched a kind of open debate about my research. So I had an immediate gut-level response to this unruly group of academics. I was intrigued. I was invigorated. I jumped into the fray. Now, to be honest, I was emboldened by the fact that I had an offer in hand from the other university, and I fully intended to accept the job, so I had nothing to lose. I thought, these people may not agree with me, but they are definitely listening to me, and they certainly care about what I have to say. They may care a little too much. By the end of a long, argument-filled day, I had the growing sense that I had found my intellectual home. Now, that interview was an accurate indicator of what was to come. I've had a career here filled with challenging and productive conversations. I've acquired a deep appreciation of a culture in which people say what they think and listen hard to what others say. I've come to see focused, critical attention to a person's words as a great sign of respect. And I have realized again and again how essential argument is for refining one's ideas. The pointed questions at my job talk were on target, and several of them were the start of conversations that have played out over years and shaped my thinking in important ways. I've also come to understand that disagreements don't always get resolved. They can persist for a lifetime. Nevertheless, you can learn a great deal from and like and even love the people you disagree with. I imagine that this rings true with your experiences here, and I trust that this is a part of our shared tradition that you're all going to take with you to your next ventures. Now, traditions can certainly change, and we are in fact witnessing a change today. After 529 quarterly convocations, today's ceremony is the last quarterly convocation. The university is going to begin the practice of holding only annual spring ceremonies in the coming year. Now, change is inevitable. It's often poignant, and it's sometimes for the better. In fact, in my time here, there have been many changes for the better. Pedestrian zones and landscaping cover what were once city streets. Insomnia cookies have come to campus. And so have food trucks with quirky names like the Tamale Spaceship, Bruges Brothers, and my personal favorite, the Pierogi Wagon. And the college has grown and become remarkably more diverse at the same time that it's risen dramatically in national rankings. The Chicago Ivory Tower has made considerable peace with engaging real-world problems, from problems in education to energy policy to the multidimensional problems that confront cities. But at the same time, we have brand new high-rise dormitories that happen to look a lot like ivory towers. Now, what has not changed is the centrality of open and vigorous discourse in our academic culture. Now, the right to speak freely is, of course, at the heart of our national identity. In academic life, freedom of expression is critical to the honest and full testing of ideas and to the transmission of knowledge. The past 2 years have been a time of reflection on campus about our shared value of free expression. The report on freedom of expression from the committee that was led by Jeff Stone has invigorated discussions, sometimes quite contentious discussions, about how the principles of free expression should be implemented in the practices of our community. Now, my thinking on these issues is informed not only by my fondness for argumentative colleagues, but also by the fact that I study the origins of speech. Or more precisely, I study the cognitive processes that enable infants to get a first grasp on language. And I study infants because they lack all the adult layers of self-doubt and second-guessing and reputation management. They show us in a direct way what's most true about human nature. When I was a graduate student, I gave language lessons to 1-year-olds. They were very simple lessons. I'd hold up an unfamiliar object. I used kitchen gadgets like garlic presses, and I'd tell the baby its made-up name. I'd say, "This is a dachs." I did this with hundreds of infants, maybe 1,000 infants, one baby at a time. And the babies would listen, wide-eyed, cute, very baby-like. And the remarkable thing was that they would remember what the dachs was, even after hearing the word just a few times, and even after a long delay. The human mind is hungry for language. Now, when I started those studies, I thought about word learning purely as a logical problem, a matter of connecting a symbol to its meaning. I had lost track of something important. I had lost track of the fact that language is, at its core, a medium for social expression. That was my colleague Rick Schwader's point when he stood up at my job talk and told me my starting assumptions were all wrong. He was right, and eventually I saw that. My language lessons worked, not just because they provided babies with words and meanings, but also because they did so in the context of a communicative exchange. Language learning happens in conversations, and it's driven by the goal of sharing ideas. In the many years since my job talk, I've spent most of my time investigating the rich social knowledge that babies bring to bear in the enterprise of language learning. It turns out that from the beginning, babies respond to speech by looking for cues to what the speaker, to the ideas that the speaker intends to convey. They understand that words have a special status as shared forms for communicating, and when they themselves contribute to the conversation, they're eager for signs that their meaning has been recognized. From the start, speech emerges in conversation, and it is for conversation. And I think this has implications for how we should understand the value of free expression. Many of the salient controversies over free expression focuses on instances in which the speech is viewed as something like a missile launched into the void, a tweet, a slur, writing on a wall, a real wall or a Facebook wall, a provocative lecture. But this way of thinking misses a central function of speech. It is the medium of conversation, the back and forth, presenting of and responding to ideas. Even the missile cases can become parts of conversations at longer timescales and across broader groups of interlocutors. A critical function of speaking freely is the improved understanding that might, if we are lucky, result from the discussion. Insight does not come from a single proclamation, but instead from the conversation that follows. Now, speech also connects people to one another in ways that go beyond individual conversations. Shared ways of communicating bind members of an entire community together. And at the same time, diversity in these practices can separate communities from one another. Indeed, patterns of speech, the language that is spoken, the accent with which one speaks, even the particular terms one favors, are potent signals of the social group to which a person belongs. And this kind of diversity can impede conversations that cross social divides, not only because of a lack of shared vocabulary, but because people have a strong tendency to resist the messages of outsiders. Now, babies reveal this tendency in obvious, concrete ways. When introduced to one person who speaks in a familiar language or with a familiar accent, and another person who speaks in an unfamiliar way, babies show a strong preference for the familiar speaker. They attend to her more, they're more eager to interact with her, and they prefer to learn the information that she has to offer. My colleague, Katie Kinsler, discovered these patterns in infant behavior, and she and her students have found that these initial preferences can develop in worrying directions. Older children prefer to befriend children with familiar rather than foreign accents, and they're actually biased to associate foreign speakers with contamination. When life doesn't let babies avoid the challenge of diversity, things go better. So my student Lauren Howard and I found that babies' tendency to avoid learning from foreigners depends on the linguistic diversity of the neighborhoods in which they live. Babies who live in neighborhoods like Hyde Park, where in the space of a few blocks you'll hear Spanish and Polish and Chinese, are more open-minded. They're happy to learn what the foreign speaker has to offer. Further, Kinsler, our student Zoe Lieberman, and I found that infants who live among speakers of diverse languages show enhanced skills in what's called perspective taking. That's the ability to understand whether your conversation partner sees things the same way you do. They're also less likely than our babies from monolingual environments to view the way a person speaks as a marker of that person's social identity. Now, diversity is the natural complement to free expression because it sets the conditions for productive, even transformative conversations. The task for universities as communities that are in the business of generating new knowledge and teaching the next generation of thinkers is to promote the conditions that allow conversations to develop fruitfully. Conversations that span disciplines, that bring together people of different backgrounds, and critically, that connects scholarly work to the world outside of the academy. Now, I'm proud, actually, quite proud of the way that this university undertakes these tasks. At the same time, it's important not to underestimate the difficulty of sustaining this work. It's an effort that pushes against the basic human tendency to prefer familiar voices. These are challenging times for sustaining free expression on college campuses and more generally. And to be honest, I worry about the uncertainties that lie ahead. To my mind, the most concerning developments are the divisions that have sharpened between communities and that present barriers for reaching a shared understanding of what's true and important. And even so, I have to say that I am genuinely optimistic about the future when I consider how ready all of you are to meet it. So my advice to you as you leave this place and begin the next adventures of your lives is that you remember what you have learned here. Engage in thoughtful argument. Don't shy away from the hard analysis of the ideas that other people present. Put your own ideas to the test by sharing them with people who differ from you in their experiences and opinions. And learn from the people that you disagree with. Thank you, and congratulations.
As we begin the presentation of degrees, may I call your attention to the award of honors listed in the convocation program, as well as the names of candidates receiving their degrees today in absentia. At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, the deans of several faculties or their appointed representatives will present the candidates for academic degrees to the president of the university. Christopher J. Wild, Deputy Dean of the College and Master of the Humanities Collegiate Division, will now present candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in the programs in the college.
Mr. President, these students have completed the prescribed program of undergraduate studies. On behalf of the faculty of the college, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, and welcome you to the Fellowship of Educated Individuals.
Brandon Lewis Akers. Grace Jacqueline Beitler. Andrew Lyndon Bonar. Edward Bordeaux Brooks. Joshua Charles Burda. Miguel Buriti Simoes Barbosa. William Wilcher Bush. Shubham Mukul Chandra. Harold Bolin Chen. Joy Sujin Cho. Gabriela Alyssa Cipriano. Lillian Ruth Erickson. Bianca Angelique Orgine. Sandra Marina Fernandez Jr. Nicholas Hornsberry. Emily Huang. Eduardo Landeros. Ji Hun Lee. Jonathan Lee. Tiffany Lin. Miguel Alejandro Lora. Paul Anjun Liu. Jordan Miller Surratt. Nicholas Matthew Murphy. Gay Ann Nersessian. Anna Michelle Paz. Savannah Rogers. Jacob Bear Sewart. Nicole McConnell Sider. Margarita Sokolova. Ishwan Song. Shaila Anjali Sundram. Jerry Tsai. Jacob Tukolsky. Chirag Harej Ved. Samuel Vladimir Wexler. Michelle Linhan Wang. Isabel Welbury.
Mr. President, I have the honor of presenting student marshals in the class of 2016, appointed for their excellent records in academic studies and contributions to the university and its community. They have served with distinction as student marshals. Sindhu Nyano Sambandan. Jeffrey Huang.
The Dean of the Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Liberal Arts and Master of Science in programs in the Graham School.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree Master of Liberal Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the liberal arts, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Liberal Arts. And I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Matthew Ellman. Janice Ann Perino. Alicia Payton. Marcus Stewart. Marisa Tops Akindele. Heather Wagner. Ronald William Whiteford II. Shizui Shang. Yvonne Yanover. Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in your profession, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Patrick Agrawal. Theodore Bakanis. Kirtia Dopatai. Alexandra Gaski. Eli He. Youngjo Im. Maria Guadalupe Islas Martinez. Yangling Jin. Abalisha Kamut. Arushi Kapoor. Minyu Lu. Robert Mokernan. Valenta Ponana. Lanvanya Rashifankar. Stephen Robert Stewart.
The Dean of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine will now present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine.
Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Jenna Renee Christensen. Catherine Elizabeth Criswell. Alexander Robert French. Ellen Lewis Hutchinson. Tristan Xavier Jordan. Jennifer La. Sophia Karki Lumsell. Britt Page Scatton. Nicholas William Van Kuren. Shan Yu.
The Dean of the Division of the Humanities will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Humanities.
Mr. President, this student has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Humanities and the special program approved by her department. I have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the humanities, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Alana Simone Rodlo de Zur. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Humanities, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Chen Wei Di. Kenneth Bradley Eisenstein. Tomas Ignacio Gueglio Saccone. Michael Hansen. Alana Stevenson Cranes. Quincy An. Lindsay St. Clair.
The Dean of the Division of the Physical Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Physical Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the physical sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Yadu Nan Babuji. Mayor Pradeep Bakai. Robert Dean Bartlett. Prakash Chandra Belur Chandrasekhar. Michael Ha-Yung-sok Bavin. Remington Lane Carey. Ushi Chen. Thomas Michael Christensen Salome. Chienpung Shui. Ishnaman Dora. Mungyao Do. Hao Gao. Peng Gao. Kaibin Gong. Rory David Gosen, Matthew Emmerin Goss, Xiaoyin Gu, Yu Gu, David John Guarino, Apoorvi Gupta, Tiangyong He, Xingtong Hu, Pushun Huang, Xinyi Wang, Xu Hui, Shenshu Jiang, Zhen Jiang, Hao Jin, Elin Jin, Anand Krishna Kumar, Anirudh Krishnan, Narendra Kunapareddy, Bin Lan, Yanjie Lei, Tien Lung, Benny Li, Chen Li, Jia Li, Juin Li, Suyao Li, Zhongyi Li, Juqi Li, Huanwu Lim, Fengzhong Liu, Xiao Liu, Ying Liu, Wuqing Liu, Zheng Liu, Ming Lu, Xuanzhou Luan, Zhong Luo, Ray Ming, Lumason Mondrel, Haorin Nan, Patrick Michael Nels, Sam Francis Nicolay, Kipashini Ronnie N. Parashami, Brian Joseph Olson, Bua Pung, Braden Richard Pitsenbarger, Kari Yushi Rao, Shayaben Shen, Catherine Brittany Smith, Tianyu Sung, Paul Kraus Stevenson, Jiankung Tao, Sheng Tian, Jinyuan Tian, Igor Vasilovich, Fungyong Wang, Huinlin Wang, Sowei Wang, Shinren Wang, Shueyin Wang, Shuhao Wang, Eric Matthew Werimi, Seth Frederick Warkatintin, Jialin Wei, Jonathan Thomas Williams, Jianwen Xiang, Shua Xin, Xin Xin, Chuanshe Xiong, Ke Shu, Kuyi Shu, Xiaowei Shu, Xiaoyang Shu, Xin Shu, Xiaojun Shu, Yifan Xue, Jingjing Yang, Ishi Yang, Sujia Yao, Jing Yu, Qisheng Yu, Xiaofei Yu, Xuan Yu, Zuhao Yu, Hao Yuan, Hongju Zhong, Liwen Zhong, Rohan Zhong, Xiaoyang Zhong, Shui Zhong, Tianyu Zhong, Wen Zhong, Xiaorui Zhong, Yang Zhong, Yikai Zhong, Yuan Zhong, Uxing Zhang, Xin Zhong, Yan Zhong, Mingyang Zhou, Xinyuan Zhou, Yiyan Zhou, Xinchan Zhou, Shuan Zhou, Yuan Zhuang. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Christopher Chian Bunn, Maxwell Lipford Hutchinson, Daniel Dragomir Benedict Kolb, James Matthew Curley III, Di Leo, Tienen Leo, Wayip Lo, Juhao Lo, Le Wang, Ifan Wang, Donglin Zhao.
The Dean of the Division of the Social Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Social Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the social sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Franco Bavoni Escobedo, Karen Denise Carter, Ningxiang Gao, Pinshuan Huang, Alicia Devon Hyde, Rachel Stella Kaplan, Kimberly Louise Lewis, Yanjie Niu, Brandy Nicole Norton, Joseph Rene Regis, Yuxiao Sun, Anastasia Saturian, Michael Vincent Verity, Jinjing Xia. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Nidia Isabel Bañuelos. Maura Jean Capps. Zachary James Chase. Gregory D. Malandruco. Christopher Lincoln Suku. Nora Eloise Taplin Kaguru. Tal Yifat.
The Dean of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business will now present candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration in programs in the Booth School.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of professional studies prescribed by the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I express the hope that your work will further wise choices in the allocation of economic resources for the benefit of all people.
Alec John Oxshore. Matthew Edward Oxshore. Siddhartha Bomaganti. Nicole H. Budden. Eric Andrew Butler. Prasad Bhairappa. Srikrishna Chavali. Shor Shi O Ching. Joshua Cohen Clearfield. David Paul Crow. Ketterish Avinash Despandi. Harsh A. Dev. Rosalind Bryant Dupitan. Justin Andrew Evans. Istvan Balaj Fodor. Andrea Ruth Fees. Joseph Gamino. Karan Paul Singh Gill. Jonathan Carl Glapa. Vijay K. Gopalakrishnan. Heidi Carolyn Graham. Joseph Ryan Grutti. Dane Richmond Garino. Andrea Stephanie Harasu Chipto. James Patrick Hamilton. Shelton S. Heaver. Andrew Michael Chaplow Hennessy. Robert Adam Herman. Armin Ho Tung Ho. Guo Chin Hudson. Eliza Walters Johnson. Michael Paul Jetner. Jalash Kalra. Inkaran Kanapatapalai. Budi Ozaman Kyan. Dennis Saquon Kim. Kirsten Erica Klotz. Derek Thomas Kenevi. David Joseph Kuwait. Soman Jasmine Kwang. Donglin Leo. Santiago Lopez Vasquez. Venkateshwar Raumala Dilli. Mohammed Taimur Malik. Christopher Thomas Marshall. Saurabh Shyam Mittal. Kimberly Noel Koi. Sarath Chando Origanti. Joseph Anthony Piatek. Patrick Sean Powers. Neil Puri. Sivamarakrishnan Rajaman. Timothy James Rhodey. Abra Roy Chaudhary. Dennis Joshua Schwartz. Jeffrey Allen Scott. Vivek Shankara Subramanyam. Brian Joseph Sigmund. Oh Cook Song. William Robert Sukup. Katarina Pauline Babinski Steele. Marie Tang. Bradley Robert Teach. Damina Strafula Tingos. Ryan Tomchek. Ryan Michael Truffs. Sandeep Thed. Erin Michelle Shoy Van Lenduit. Christopher Benjamin Wallace. Wan Wang. Eileen Mary Ward. Michael Shepard Washburn. Jessica Blake Wickett. Christine Tianqing Yang.
The Dean of the Divinity School will now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Divinity School.
Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research in the academic study of religion. On behalf of the faculty in the Divinity School, I have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Raphael Alexander Daskalu.
Kate Shannon Biddle, the Director of Student Affairs of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies, will now present candidates for the degree of Master of Arts and Programs in the Harris School.
Mr. President, these students have completed the course of professional studies prescribed by the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your work will improve our understanding of public policy.
Mengyuan Liang. Kohei Matsumoto. Robert Ross.
Juan de Pablo, Liu Family Professor in the Institute for Molecular Engineering and the College, will now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Programs in the Institute of Molecular Engineering.
Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Institute for Molecular Engineering, I have the honor to present him as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Yang Risu.
Deputy Dean Daniel Abebe will now present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Law, JD, in programs in the law school.
Mr. President, these students have fulfilled all of the requirements prescribed by the faculty of the law school to qualify them for the profession of law. I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Law.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Law, and I express the hope that your work will contribute to the protection of liberty and the advancement of justice.
Natalie Rose Holden. Ashley Eleanor Roybal Reed. Christopher Patrick Tassetti.
Shauna Cooper Gibson, the Dean of Students in the School of Social Service Administration, will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the School of Social Service Administration.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your work will promote the welfare of individuals and the achievement of a socially just society.
Adriana Arellano. Brittany Kristen Tolar. David John Henry Wagner. Mr. President, the student I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration, I have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Proskovia Nabunya.
Please rise for the singing of the university's alma mater. Please be seated.
This is a special day for all of you upon whom I have just conferred a degree, and it is a special day for the family members and friends who may be here to join you. It marks the completion of your study, or at least one phase of that study, a path that I trust has been challenging. I hope you are enjoying this moment of celebration and perhaps moment of reflection that this convocation affords. You are now all graduates of the University of Chicago. Because of your achievements that we celebrate here today with your family and friends, each of you will always be connected to the University of Chicago, a connection that I hope you and we will foster for many years. The University of Chicago is an institution driven from its inception by an idea that one could create and continuously renew a university focused on rigorous, intense inquiry and analysis. The university, through its work every day, expresses the view that clarity derives from the clash of ideas, the challenge of assumptions, and the willingness to accept answers only when they meet the tests of argument. We seek understanding that is complex, expandable, and fluid rather than simple and rigid. An understanding that reflects analysis rather than ideology, that accepts complexity over the comfort of simplicity, that seeks to delineate both the power and the limitations of argument, and that is always ready to incorporate new data which can emerge and which, in fact, must be sought. We believe that the best education, the most empowering education, and the most powerful learning take place in the environment of constant challenge that is implicit in this culture of rigorous inquiry, and that this culture is responsible for producing ideas of power and importance to humankind. This focus on rigorous inquiry has defined the University of Chicago, its research, and its education at all levels since its beginning, and it continues to do so today. The university and its culture are renewed every day by the work of its faculty, students, and staff. And while it is natural to focus on your own achievements today and what they mean for your future, you can also take great satisfaction in your contribution to the ongoing renewal of your university, the University of Chicago. I know that as graduates of this university in the coming years, you will be called upon to act, to speak, and to lead. And like so many University of Chicago graduates who have come before you, you will approach the challenge of leadership empowered by your University of Chicago education. The power of analysis and ideas that you have experienced here and that are now your own will serve you wherever your path takes you and whatever challenges you confront. Each of you who received a degree today has received help and support from parents, family, spouses, partners, children, friends, mentors, or university faculty and staff. And while it is your achievements that we mark today, all of these supporters can rightly take great pride in your accomplishment. And so to all degree recipients, please accept my congratulations for all you have achieved. I wish you all good fortune and happiness in the years ahead. Enjoy your coming adventures wherever they may lead you. Congratulations.
This now concludes the 529th Convocation of the University of Chicago. Crescat scientia vita exculator. Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched.